Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the remarkable story of Tran Hung, a truly pivotal figure in Vietnamese history.
hmm And to navigate this deep dive, we've primarily drawn from the Vietnamese Wikipedia entry for Tran Hung.
Okay.
Think of it as a solid foundation,
Yeah.
offering a broad view of his life, his impactful career, and the lasting legacy he forged.
Exactly. Our mission is to really dig into the most compelling aspects of his leadership. We want to understand how he played such a crucial role
A huge role.
in defending Han against, what was it, three significant Mongol invasions. We're talking about uncovering the strategies, the personal qualities that made him a national hero.
Absolutely. And for anyone just hearing the name Tran Hung as well, he was originally Tran Quoc Tun,
Mm,
a distinguished member of the royal family.
right.
But more than just nobility, he possessed this brilliant military mind that really propelled him to become the supreme commander.
Supreme Commander, wow.
Yeah, and his influence was so profound, he was later revered as Ek Tan Trun, saintly Lord Tren.
Saintly Lord Tran. And those three Mongol invasions you mentioned, they're really central to his story, aren't they?
Definitely. That's the core conflict we'll be exploring.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. Unpack his early life, his family background.
All right, so Trun Quoc Tun was born probably around 1228, though, some accounts do suggest slightly different years.
Okay.
His birthplace was Tukmak Village, which is now part of Nam Minh City. He was the son of Chorn Liu, known as Ein Sin Vung.
Vuong, meaning a prince, right? A high-ranking one.
Exactly, yeah, a high-ranking prince. And he was the nephew of the emperor, Trun Tai Tung.
Now, there was some, let's say, interesting dynamics within the royal family. It wasn't all smooth sailing.
No, definitely not. Trun Lu's first wife, Tuan Tin Kum Chua, she later became the wife of Emperor Trun Tai Tung.
His own brother's wife.
Yes, and this, understandably, created a significant rift. Trun Liu reportedly felt a great deal of resentment. He even tasked the young Tran Quoc Tun with avenging him.
Seriously. That's quite a burden to put on your son.
It is, but, and this really speaks to his character early on, Tran Quoc Tun ultimately chose the nation's well-being over this personal vendetta. He rejected the charge.
That tells you a lot. So what else shaped him in those early years?
Well, descriptions paint him as having a striking appearance, exceptional intelligence, and crucially, he got a top-notch education from a young age.
Ah, okay.
Became highly skilled in, well, both civil administration and military strategy, the whole package, really.
A bit of a Renaissance man before the Renaissance, perhaps? And wasn't there a rather dramatic story about his marriage?
Yes, there is. He married Tin Tan Kon Chua, who was Emperor Trun Tai Tung's daughter, so his cousin.
Right.
And the circumstances, well, they were quite something. The emperor had actually intended her for another nobleman. But Tran Quoc Tun, being quite determined, it seems, reportedly, snuck into her quarters one night.
No, he didn't.
He did, according to the stories. His adoptive mother had to step in, plead with the emperor to let the marriage happen, probably fearing for his safety.
Wow.
It even involved, apparently, paying off the original intended groom.
That's one way to secure a marriage. Okay, so moving on. His first real taste of military command comes with the first Mongol invasion, 1258.
That's right. In 1257, actually, just before the invasion hit, as the Mongol threat was clearly growing, he was appointed to oversee the border defenses, a crucial area.
But the records, they're a bit sparse on what exactly he did during the major battles of that first invasion, aren't they?
They are, yeah. The main chronicles, like the A Vit Suki Tu Tun.
That's the big historical record for Vietnam, right?
Yes, exactly. It mentions his appointment, which was significant, but doesn't give loads of detail on his specific actions in the fighting itself during that first round.
We do know how it ended, though.
We do. The Mongols were defeated at Dung Bu. They retreated.
Okay.
And after that victory, Emperor Trun Tai Tung abdicated. His son, Tran Tai Tung, took the throne, and Tran Quoc Tun went back to his estate in Van Keep.
So, a sharp initial clash, but resolved relatively quickly. Which brings us to the period between the wars, a time of, well, rising tension and serious preparation, I imagine, especially after the Mongols finished conquering the southern Song in China in 1279.
Absolutely. The danger was becoming much clearer. The Yuan dynasty was right on their doorstep, essentially.
So what did they do? How did they prepare?
Emperor Tran Tai Tung specifically tasked Tran with setting up martial arts schools.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and these weren't just general training. They were aimed specifically at the royal family members and other talented individuals across the country, really building up their military skills base.
That sounds incredibly proactive, really looking ahead. And Tran at this point, he really threw himself into it.
He did. Travel all over, personally checking local training grounds, scouting for talent.
Ah, so this is where those famous loyal retainers come in.
Exactly. Figures like Yet Kyo and Dantung, who become so important later, were recruited during this period. He had an eye for talent and loyalty.
And there's that story with the Yuan envoy, Sai Teng, the one who was apparently quite rude.
Yuan.
That really shows off his diplomatic side, doesn't it?
It really does. Sai Teng was acting very arrogant, disrespectful. So Trong Tun tries a different approach. He disguises himself as a northern monk.
Shaves his head and everything.
Yeah, robes, shaved head, the works, goes to meet the envoy. This totally unexpected move, plus his calm diplomacy, it just diffused the whole tense situation.
Clever.
Apparently, it even impressed Sai Teng, despite the fact that, get this, the envoy's servant actually jabbed Tran Tun with an arrow during the meeting.
What? And he stayed calm.
Stayed composed. Incredible nerve.
Talk about grace under pressure. So all this preparation, it leads up to him being appointed Grand Commander, right? Kwak Kung Tiche, that was in 1283.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
As the second invasion threat became undeniable, both the retired Emperor Chen Tong and the current Emperor Tran Tong saw the danger and put their full trust in him.
Kwak Kung Tiche, that's basically supreme commander of everything.
Pretty much, yeah. Authority over all the forces. A huge responsibility.
And then in 1284 comes the famous Hit Tung Se, the proclamation to the officers.
A really powerful, inspiring speech. Yeah. Absolutely crucial for rallying the troops, getting everyone focused and motivated for the fight ahead.
A key moment. Okay, so let's dive into that second Mongol invasion in 1285. This one was much bigger, much tougher than the first.
Oh, definitely. Much larger scale, more prolonged. And initially, the Vietnamese faced setbacks. They had to execute a strategic retreat to Von Keep.
But this wasn't just running away, right? It was planned.
Absolutely planned, not a rout. It shows his leadership, the discipline he'd instilled. He understood the Mongol war machine, their reliance on massive supply lines.
So the retreat drew them in.
Drew them deeper into territory where their logistics would be stretched thin. And the scorched earth policy wasn't just denial. It was about making them vulnerable, setting them up for counterattacks by smaller, faster Vietnamese units.
And this difficult period is where we get those amazing stories of loyalty from Yit Hue and Dan Tuong.
Yes. Yit Hue were refusing to leave the boat until his commander returned. Dan Tuong vouching so strongly for him, it shows the incredible bond he had with his men.
That personal connection.
Definitely. And it's around this time he uses that analogy, comparing talented officers to the supports of a Huanghak bird, a swan.
Ah, needing 6 strong pillars, 6 key officers to fly high.
Exactly. Underscoring how much he valued his commanders.
So the retreat involved giving up the capital, Tanglong, and that scorched earth policy you mentioned. Tough decisions.
Critical decisions. And during this low point, Emperor Tran Hung was understandably very worried. He actually asked about surrendering.
And Tran Hung Dao's response.
Absolutely legendary. But Jim Do Toi Roy Hanging. Your Majesty, behead me first before surrendering.
Wow. Just unwavering commitment.
Total defiance. Yeah. No surrender.
The retreat continued towards the coast, right? Quanlin, Haiphong area. Another difficult phase.
Very difficult. And there's another great little anecdote from this time. Shows his awareness, his leadership.
No.
He's walking beside the kings, carrying a staff, maybe one with a sharp metal point. Remember, his father's old resentment towards the emperor's line could still theoretically be a point of suspicion for some.
Ah, right. Lingering family tensions.
So Tran Hung Dao deliberately removes the sharp point from his staff and throws it away. A small act, but a clear signal.
I mean no harm. I am completely loyal.
Precisely. Reassuring everyone, dispelling any doubts during a very tense moment. Building that unity.
Very smart. From the coast, they repositioned. Moved back towards Thun Hoa by sea.
Yes, a strategic move by sea, getting ready to hit back.
And hit back they did. May 1285, the tide turns.
It really does. A series of crucial victories. Ham Tu, Chung Duong, Tay Ket, Van Keep. Big losses for the Yuan.
This forces them to withdraw.
Forces a full withdrawal, and the Yuan commander, Thoat Han, The story goes, he had to escape hidden inside a copper tube to avoid being captured or killed.
Not exactly a dignified exit. And some key Yuan generals were killed in this campaign.
Yes, Torho and Li Heng both died during this invasion. Significant losses for the Mongols.
But even after such a major defeat, Kublai Khan wasn't done yet. He comes back for a third time.
Unbelievably, yes. He was still determined to conquer Avid. And this third time, he had an extra goal. Install a Vietnamese traitor, Tran Hung Dao, as a puppet king.
Trying to undermine the Tran dynasty from within as well.
Exactly. A collaborator regime.
But Tran Hung Dao, after that second victory, must have been brimming with confidence. Didn't he say something like, "This year's fight will be easy"?
He did. Namanai Jankan. This year, fighting the enemy will be easy.
Sounds almost arrogant, but probably wasn't.
No, I think it stemmed from a deep understanding of the situation. He knew their strengths, the Mongols' weaknesses after the last round. He believed in quality over quantity.
He made that point explicitly, right, referencing some huge ancient Chinese army that got defeated.
Yeah, the army of Fujian. Massive numbers, but ultimately beaten. His point was strategy, troop quality, and morale trump sheer size.
So the third invasion kicks off late 1287 into 1288. Similar defensive strategy initially. Guerrilla tactics around the capital.
Yes, harassing the invaders, wearing them down, disrupting supplies. Those tactics were essential.
But the real turning point in this third invasion was a naval battle, wasn't it, at Van On?
Absolutely decisive. The Yuan were relying heavily on a massive supply fleet coming by sea, led by Tran Van Ho. Tran Hung Dao intercepted and absolutely smashed it at Van On, wiped out their supply line.
Crippling blow.
Totally crippling. Cut off their reinforcements, their food, everything. It basically doomed the land invasion.
That must have set the stage for the final showdown, the legendary Battle of Bac Bang River, 1288, his most famous victory.
It really is. The absolute pinnacle. He brings back that old strategy.
Gokun strategy from centuries earlier, the stakes.
The very same. Planting sharpened wooden stakes hidden underwater in the riverbed. Genius planning.
So how did it play out?
They timed it perfectly. Lured the main Yuan fleet into the river channel during high tide when the stakes were submerged.
Better.
Then as the tide started going out, revealing the stakes, the Vietnamese forces attacked fiercely from all sides.
Trapping them.
Completely trapping them. The Yuan ships were impaled on the stakes, panicked, couldn't maneuver. Total chaos for them.
Just devastating.
Annihilation is the word often used. The Yuan Navy was effectively destroyed. Key generals captured: Omani, Phan Thieup, Peixleka.
Then Toat Hun, the commander.
He had to retreat overland again through Lang Son, suffering heavy losses on the way out. Humiliating defeat.
The Chronicles mention the river turning red.
They do. Ivietsuki Toantu describes the river running red with blood. A grim image, but it conveys the sheer scale of the victory. It definitively ended the Mongol invasions.
An absolutely incredible climax to the conflict. And after this, in 1289, he's formally honored.
Deservedly so. Awarded the title Hung Al Dai Vun, recognizing his immense contribution.
And after all that warfare, did he finally get some peace? He retired.
Eventually, yes. He retired to his estate in Van Keep, but he remained hugely respected, so much so that people actually built a living temple to honor him while he was still alive.
Wow, that's some serious reverence. Did he continue to advise the rulers?
Oh, yes. Even on his deathbed in 1300, he gave crucial final advice to the king, Tra An Tong.
What was it?
Essentially, Fei Han tu suk dan dom fam geso ben guk. Treat the people with leniency. Look after their well-being, because that's the foundation, the deep roots that make the nation strong and stable.
Powerful words, emphasizing the people as the core strength.
Absolutely. He understood that military might alone wasn't enough. You need the support and well-being of the populace.
And his burial wishes were quite unusual, weren't they?
They were specific. He asked to be cremated. Ashes put in a simple container, buried secretly in his garden.
Secretly?
Yeah, and he told his sons to level the ground afterwards, plant trees, completely hide the spot, to prevent grave robbing, essentially. Very pragmatic, even in death.
Thinking ahead, as always, his death must have been a huge loss. But his status only grew afterwards. The veneration as a Tran.
It solidified. He received more posthumous titles, and that veneration as Saintly Lord Tran became widespread and endures even today. It shows just how deeply he impacted the national consciousness.
And his legacy wasn't just military victories, right? He wrote things down, too.
Yes, very important. His writings, like the Hiktumse we mentioned, but also Bin Thu Lut Essentials of Military Strategy and Van Kiptong Bi Choi into secret military teachings.
So he codified his knowledge.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Especially Binh Tu Yu Look. It laid out key Vietnamese military principles and tactics. It influenced warfare in the region for centuries. It wasn't just about winning battles. It was about developing a strategic doctrine.
A master strategist, but also a unifier, someone who understood the power of the people.
Completely. You see it in how he managed to unite factions, how he set aside that personal grievance with Trung Quang Kai eventually, and how he refused his father's wish to grab the throne.
Nation first.
Always. Nation first, personal ambition second. Or rather, not at all.
And his knack for finding talent, UQ, Dontu, others, that seems crucial too.
Undeniably. Identifying, promoting, and inspiring loyalty in capable people was a huge part of his success. You see the results in the loyalty they showed him.
Which explains all the temples and streets and things named after him across Vietnam today.
It's a living legacy. He's still incredibly revered, a constant reminder of that period and his leadership.
And those famous quotes, behead me first, the passionate words and the Hictung say about wanting to, flay the enemy, they really capture his spirit, don't they?
They do. Fierce patriotism, strategic depth, unwavering resolve, it all comes through. They still resonate.
So bringing it all together, Tran Hung Dao's achievement was leading Avit to victory against, well, incredible odds. 3 Mongol invasions defeated through strategy, determination.
And that crucial connection with the people. His ability to unite everyone.
His legacy as a national hero is just immense, a symbol of Vietnamese resilience, patriotism, the strength of unity against overwhelming force.
Absolutely secure. He's one of the towering figures of Vietnamese history, no question.
And thinking about it now, maybe there's something for us to reflect on. His focus on unity, on the people being the foundation. How might that apply today? Even without a Mongol invasion at the gates.
That's a really interesting thought. How does that principle of deep roots, strong foundation, based on popular well-being, translate to modern challenges?
Yeah, or even his strategic thinking. Adapting old tactics, like with the Botgang stakes, innovating under pressure. Could that kind of thinking be useful elsewhere? Business, technology, even just navigating our own lives.
It definitely gives you something to mull over. How those historical lessons in leadership and strategy might still hold relevance in completely different contexts. Food for thought for sure.